Conditions May Apply by CinnamonPinecones. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 26. F is for friends who do stuff together and to pay respects. Izuku was only like 65% sure that that was an empty threat. Maybe he should take the night off. He'd slept till noon and had a lot of stuff to do today. There were a bunch of pallets in the basement, and if he filled in the gaps between the boards with boards from another pallet, he could use some paint he had left over and make a pretty good target. He wanted to keep practicing his throwing skills, and he also wanted to get started on fixing up those power tools so he could install a cat door for DJ. And he never finished his homework for the weekend. Since the homework was the most boring and the only one with a due date, he did that first. Once he was done with that, he started ripping apart pallets and harvesting the nails carefully so he could put them back together with all the planks flush with one another. When that was done, he lugged it up the stairs and set it up by the windows outside the stairwell door. It would be better to do it outside, but he didn't want the rare passerby to get nosy. He painted on a much neater target than Eraser had constructed last night by using a nail and a length of string to sketch out perfect circles. He barely gave the paint time to dry before he sent the first knife flying. It hit the outer ring and actually stuck. Obviously, it was much easier to get a knife to stick into wood than a brick wall, but he honestly didn't expect to be able to get one to stick so quickly. And it hit the target. As he fell into the rhythm of throwing the knives, retrieving them, and throwing them again, he didn't even notice the time pass until there was hardly enough light to see the target. Oh, Kami, he was hungry. Maybe he could swipe some pastries from Shimamoto-san, or if he was lucky, Mochizuki-san would have enough bread left over tonight to fill him up. He could forego the rolling of the die tonight and gun it straight for the cafe. And wait, no, Eraser said to rest tonight. Rest tonight. He woke up like 7 hours ago. How the hell is he supposed to rest tonight? Stupid old people and their stupid lack of energy. He plopped down in his stairwell and perused his meager collection of food. There was the, quote, nutrient packet that Eraser gave him the other night, and a granola bar. Great! Dinner of champions. Maybe he could spend his time trying to get the power tools to work without looking anything up. That would end well, surely. He needed to throw treats at DJ and complain about several things. The next morning found Izuku more rested than he'd been in months. Maybe the stupid geezer was onto something. Not that he'd ever admit it. He wrote down the name and model of every tool, dashed downstairs, and headed to the library to do some research. Hopefully things between Shinso and him will be back to their normal level of awkward today. When he walked over to the computer, Shinso waved at him like he always did, but he didn't say anything, which wasn't too unusual. It was Monday, and he was not a morning person at all. So Izuku let him be and went about trying to diagnose the issues with any of the things he'd found. He was pretty sure the only thing wrong with the drill was that the cord was busted, so that should be an easy fix. But if he could get a look at the owner's manual or even a blueprint, that would help immensely if it still didn't work once he'd replaced that. He was lost in his thoughts, studying the mechanisms of the jigsaw he found, when a voice startled him back to the present. Midoriya, I have a question if you don't mind, Shinso said from his computer. He was still half distracted, trying to go through the repairs he was going to have to do in his mind, when he responded with a before properly processing what he'd said. Why don't you think you can be a hero? Shinso asked timidly. Oh, crap. Any thoughts of repairs he had came to a grinding halt. This was not the way he wanted to start this week. He couldn't just tell Shinso he was a null, with an expiration date creeping ever closer. Vague. Be vague. Don't spin some lie and get yourself tangled up in it. I just don't have the quirk for it, Shinso, he replied. Shinso's expression softened and he wore a smirk when he said, "That's a bit hypocritical, Greenie." Izuku let out a humorless laugh and said, "Yeah, I guess it is." Shinso had no way of knowing that whatever issue he had with his quirk was nothing like Izuku's, but he couldn't help the part of him that felt tickled with the implication that Shinso still believed in him. How about this? If I don't give up on myself, then neither do you, he said. It was a lie, but Shinso didn't have to know that. His smirk fell before it turned into a gentle smile, and he looked away with a blush on his cheeks. Huh, yeah. Maybe if you teach me some of those ninja moves you've been researching, he said as he picked up his cuticles. Now, there was a thought. Izuku had heard someone say that the best way to learn is to teach. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to try. That could be fun. It's hard to learn without having someone to spar with. What happened to not lying? He was lying through his teeth and possibly inviting Shinso to hang out outside of the library. This would definitely hurt to try, and he was an idiot. Really? Shinso asked excitedly. He's giving him an out. Take it. Just take it. Just, yeah, why not? Freaking dumbass. Shinso sat straighter at that, and his face split into one of his genuine smiles that Izuku didn't get to see very often. Yeah, this wasn't gonna end well. Cool. When do you get out of school? We could meet whenever you practice. You go to Aldera down the street, right? Shinso asked. Oh, of course. He worked out where he went to school. It was the closest one, and he wore a uniform every day. It wasn't too hard to suss out, but he couldn't let Shinso anywhere near there. Kami. He can imagine how that would end. Someone poking around the school asking for him? No. Hell no. Um, yeah, but I can meet you somewhere closer to wherever you live. Your mom works open till like 2, right? You don't have to wait around for me. I don't get out till 3:30. Yeah, we leave at 2:30, but it's only an hour's difference. I could wait. Izuku, in his panic to keep Shinso as far away from Aldera as possible, interrupted, saying, "No, no. I mean, it's fine. We can meet in the middle, maybe. I don't mind meeting wherever you want. I don't even have anywhere to practice. Do you know anywhere?" Shinso looked at him strangely. Real smooth, Izuku. Way to keep it cool and not look suspicious at all. Uh-huh. Great work. Oh, no, that's a good point. We'd probably get some weird looks if we just practiced in the park or something. Shinso paused a minute, as if he were considering whether he should say what he was about to say. Um, I could ask my mom if we could meet at my house. We have a little backyard. Shinso was inviting him over. Him, Izuku. Shinso Hitoshi was inviting Midoriya Izuku over to his house. Yes, this was something he expected and definitely knew how to respond to. Uh-huh, yep. And he was going to do it. He was going to respond. Any second now. Mm-hmm. Any second now. Greenbean.exe has stopped working. Maybe that was too forward. Hitoshi wasn't really sure how this whole friend thing was supposed to work, but he was pretty sure that hanging out at each other's houses was a normal thing to do, so offering that option shouldn't garner this kind of reaction, right? It looked like Greenie blue screened. He was about to start panicking in earnest when Midoriya shook himself out of the trance he was in and responded, "Yeah, that would probably be better than the park," he said before breaking off in an awkward laugh. Luckily, they were saved by the bell when Midoriya's phone went off, rescuing them from bumbling through the rest of this conversation. It was an alarm, probably informing him that he would be late to school if he didn't leave right now, because it was a full 5 minutes past when Midoriya normally left. Given the time, the way Greenie's eyes widened, and his frantic scrambling to get all his stuff back in his bag, Hitoshi figured that was probably it. "I'll ask my mom and let you know Wednesday. You free after school that day?" Hitoshi asked, as Midoriya shoved the last of his things into his bag. "Yeah, I just gotta be home by dark," he responded. "All right, sounds like a plan," Hitoshi confirmed. Midoriya nodded and waved as he sped out the door. Kami. They were both so hopelessly awkward. At least they had something in common. Izuku ran out of the library, thanking his lucky stars that he had that alarm set just in case. He knew full well he probably looked like a strawberry with how much he was blushing. He tried to remind himself that Shinso didn't actually know what he was and wouldn't actually want to be his friend if he knew, but that didn't stop the stupid traitorous hope from bubbling in his chest. Come, he was forever doomed to love things that couldn't love him back. His parents, Kachan, DJ, he was just setting himself up to be knocked down again and again and again. One would think that he would run out of love to give after pouring it into so many broken cups, but he never did, and he would never learn, would he? For the rest of the day, he couldn't stop himself from imagining the infinite amount of horrible ways Shinso could react to finding out he's a null, as if parroting back every hateful word he'd ever been called would spare him the heartbreak of actually hearing them come from Shinso himself. He knew it wouldn't, but just like he couldn't stop the hope bubbling in his chest, he could not stop his mind from trying to stomp it down. By the time the final bell rang, Izuku was more than ready to jet out of there and go on patrol immediately. But the sun was still out, and he wasn't set to meet Eraser for another 3 hours. He was definitely not in the state of mind to try and fix the power tools, so he spent the free time slinging his knives at the target he'd made yesterday with extreme force and prejudice. Some of them hit hard enough to poke out the other side of the thin pine board, and they were quite annoying to pull loose, which did not help his mood. His accuracy was worse like this, but if he put this amount of spite behind his throws, he'd get them sticking into brick walls in no time flat. When he ended up falling on his butt from using his entire body weight to dislodge a knife that had gotten stuck up to the hilt between two boards, he decided that was enough for now. He lay there for a while before he noticed the shadows start to lengthen across the room. He should probably get ready to go. Eraser wanted to spar with him again. They'd planned to show up at the same rooftop 2 hours before sunset so they could work on his fighting skills together, but he was already in such a piss-poor mood that plan ended in disaster last time when he got pinned and had a panic attack like the helpless little Deku he was. Kami, nothing was going to make him feel better, was it? It was just one of those days when nothing he did would be good enough. It wasn't the soul-crushing sense of pointlessness that came from the pit in his gut and had him looking at the ledge of each roof he came across with longing. No, it was just the run-of-the-mill apathy that washed over him from time to time. the kind that made him want to sleep the day away, even though that never fixed anything. He'd always wake up feeling just as bad or worse than he did before. All he could do was go about his day and hope against all odds that something would knock him out of it. Eventually, something would, or he would fall back into the pit in his gut and be forced to climb his way out of it on his own for the nth time. Right now, he couldn't be bothered to care which way it ended up. He knew he should, but he didn't. He kept lying there on the floor until his alarm went off, telling him that if he didn't leave soon, he was going to be late. Reluctantly, he peeled himself off the dirty, cracked concrete floor and made his way to the stairwell to get changed. Other people were relying on him. This city was relying on him, and Eraser was willing to waste his own time trying to help him. He had to take advantage of that before he got bored or fed up with him and left or arrested him or did whatever the heck it was he was planning with him. He was a null with an expiration date. He didn't have the time to waste on apathy. End of chapter.